Hi folks, welcome to RJA Impact. Today we're going to be talking about week 14 in the Holmes Theranos trial. You can search this channel for previous week's updates and also for a more detailed video on the background to Theranos and Holmes' journey to the point at which this trial commenced. Please don't forget to like this video if you do, and subscribe to the channel, and if you hit the notification button you won't miss out on any future videos and updates. As a reminder, Elizabeth Holmes is in court accused of multiple instances of fraud against doctors, patients and investors in connection with her role as CEO of Theranos, and this is week 14 of that trial.
What do you think's going on here?
Well, this is what happens when you work to change things, and first they think you're crazy, then they fight you, and then all of a sudden you change the world.
Just before we continue with the testimony of the main protagonist, Elizabeth Holmes, in this trial, I'll take a little diversion into one area of the preliminaries leading up to the trial and find out how Holmes tried and failed to get the whole trial thrown out before it even started. Background bonus. In late 2020 and early 2021, Holmes and her defence team had been trying to get the whole of the indictment counts thrown out, but as you'll see, they didn't fare too well in their endeavours. I thought it would be interesting to go back and see some of the arguments made. They started off with complaints to the judge, who was still De Villa, the same judge presiding over the trial today, about delayed discovery materials provided by the prosecution, saying it was an unworkable situation with the trial at that time set for August. Now, I could be very cynical here and say that they must have been relieved when Holmes had her baby, as that did delay the trial and gave them some more time to review those materials. Anyway, they said that the fraud charges were overly broad and full of ambiguity and fudging language. One attorney also said that incorrect blood tests are a fact of life, therefore Theranos misstatements and blunders were no big deal. Let's go through some of the claims. Right to a speedy trial violated due to the prosecution's delay in filing 2 indictments. Nope. De Villa said that much of the delay was actually caused by the defence team and the pandemic. Difficult to find witnesses with clear memories of up to decades-old indictments. Nope. De Villa said that this was too vague and speculative. Too much time elapsed for the trial to be fair. Nope. De Villa said that this was also too vague and speculative. 6 of the charges should be thrown out due to statute of limitation concerns. Nope, this was just nixed. Prosecutors had somehow broadened the definition of the term investors. Nope, didn't happen. Court is not persuaded. Anyway, as you'll have gathered by now, the defence didn't have much luck in getting the indictment counts dropped. They actually started off at 11 counts, and by the time the trial started they were actually at 12. And since then 1 count has actually been dropped, so we are back at 11 again. And so to the trial. A bit of wrangling before Holmes took the stand again. The defence want to include the texts that we've all seen, but at this point the jury haven't. The prosecution are saying that they are hearsay without Balwani being in court. Now, Balwani himself has said that if he were called into court, then he would plead the 5th and not say anything at all. Some of the new texts that were introduced as part of the arguments are the same sappy, sentimental exchanges, the likes of which we've seen before. Let's have a look at a few. Balwani to Holmes. My heart is missing its heartbeat. Holmes to Balwani. Ditto. Balwani to Holmes. You live in my eyes, I see you everywhere. Holmes responded with a heart-eyed emoji. Balwani to Holmes again. For me, you are the manifestation of love itself. Holmes to Balwani, quoting Maya Angelou. There is no love for you like mine. Holmes to Balwani, and this was in May 2016 after he'd left the company. I adore you. Literal, timeless love. Balwani to Holmes. Your presence on earth is proof of God's existence. Wow. Now, interestingly, Holmes had told the SEC under oath that they had actually split up prior to him leaving. Well, the above love fest doesn't seem to back that up, does it? Oops, we had a courtroom tech issue, and the monitors and the screens went down. The court was late in starting on Monday as a result. So let's get to it. Holmes was on the stand again, being examined by the defence. How good were the machines? We saw some emails from Walgreens showing that they were having some positive customer satisfaction impacts, and another from a customer where she'd said Theranos tests had found tumours in her pituitary gland and would never go to another company again. The military. Kevin Downey addressed the defence contracts that Holmes so often quoted to investors. We saw an agreement with CENTCOM from 2012 which was in respect of a study to evaluate Theranos in Afghanistan. The work continued through 2014, and while a device was never tested in Afghanistan, Holmes said that I continued to believe we would see it through. The machines were never used on Medivacs, and Holmes said that she doesn't think she ever told anyone that they were being used on Medivacs, but was excited by the potential to do so. Now this is in direct contradiction of several investors who have said that she has said that. Three of those, Brian Grossman, Lisa Peterson and Brian Tolbert, all made this specific point in court. We even heard that investor call where she'd talked about the benefits of using the devices on Medivacs. Demonstrations. Holmes said that she'd been involved in hundreds of demonstrations over the years, and the purpose was to demonstrate different aspects of the technology. These were tailored to the visitors or customers or investors or potential partners, etc., and Daniel Young was in charge of the demonstrations. What about modifying or changing results during the demonstrations, she was asked. Sometimes adjustments need to be made to a reference range. Dr. Young had rules on how to do that properly, she said. She never directed anyone to change results, she said. The clinical lab. The company had sought CMS certification in 2011 before the Walgreens agreement. They got certified as a high complexity lab in 2011. I recall that there were no deficiencies identified, Holmes said. We understood that there would be some tests that would not be ordered that frequently, that we would need a traditional lab to run, she also said. The operational aspects were part of Balwani's role. Rosendorf. Now just a quick reminder, he was the lab director who the defence cross-examined in depth. He appears to be the focus of a lot of blame shifting by the defence. Holmes originally was really excited to meet him. He was put in charge of the lab and SOPs. Now these are standard operating procedures and essentially the rule book on how to operate the lab. Based on Rosendorf's tests, Holmes said that she thought the lab was performing extremely well. Hiding the lab. She never told anyone in Theranos to hide any aspects of the lab during the CMS inspections. Modifying third-party machines. Yes, we did, and that was disclosed to the CMS auditor. We heard that there were between 8 and 10 million tests completed in Walgreens clinics in total. Erica Chung. Holmes said that she never had any communication with this whistleblower and didn't know about any of her concerns. Tyler Schultz. I asked Dr. Young to address each of his concerns, Holmes said. She'd initially asked Young to address those concerns with him. He again raised questions and sent Holmes an email about them and the meeting with Young. Holmes said that they were very serious allegations and asked Young to go through them one by one. Another email was reviewed where Holmes had said that she was satisfied with Young's explanation of Schultz's concerns over proficiency testing. Back to Rosendorf. Holmes interacted with him whenever Rosendorf wanted to, but Balwani was his supervisor and there was frustration in that relationship, she said. Rosendorf and Young often disagreed. Holmes said Rosendorf was increasingly agitated in the months after he'd given his notice, but before he'd left, and this was in the period towards the end of 2014. I was really taken aback, Holmes said of Rosendorf's email, outlining his complaints with how the lab was run. Text messages relating to the lab. Balwani to Holmes. Heading out to Newark, love. I'm on the way to Newark. Office is yours. Balwani to Holmes again. Normandy Lab is a fucking disaster zone. Glad I came here. We'll work on this. Going after the whistleblowers. The whole approach by the defence on this can be summarised in this comment by Holmes. I think we were too aggressive. I think we lost sight of the big picture in trying to protect these trade secrets. It created all kinds of perceptions about Theranos that were incorrect. The Balwani relationship. They met in China when she was 18 and he was 38. Holmes disclosed at this point that she was raped while in Stanford and that had formed part of her decision to leave and to form Theranos during her sophomore year. Her voice was breaking in court at this point, and in her testimony she said, "I wasn't going to class. I was questioning how I was going to be able to process all that experience and what I wanted to do with my life. I decided that I was going to build a life by building the company." He said that I was safe with him, Holmes said of Balwani. We then heard some of the controlling that is alleged and what was said. He told me I didn't know what I was doing in business, that my convictions were wrong, that if I'd followed my instincts, that I would fail. Kill who I was to be a new Elizabeth to succeed in the company. Said I needed to spend all of my time on the business, working in the office 7 days a week, only doing things making the company successful. He said he would teach me how to overcome my limitations. We saw a handwritten note by Balwani, which I'm guessing was to Holmes, where he said, "Every morning I will force myself out of bed and spend 30 minutes, never a minute less, to write what I want from my day. I will never meet for more than 5 minutes unless I have written down why. My focus is on how they will serve the company more." Now, at this point, Holmes had written down her own key tenets on how to be more successful at one point. Holmes said he dictated how she behaved, slept, and worked. He felt that I came across as a little girl and not to be so giddy in my reactions, she said. Downey asked Holmes, "Were there situations that you were unsuccessful in complying with the tenets?" Holmes said he would get very angry with me and yell at me about the fact that I was so disappointing in my mediocrity. Holmes said he would get very angry with me and force me to have sex with him when I didn't want to, because he wanted me to know that he still loved me. Sonny would get very angry when I would spend time with my family, she said. Holmes said that Balwani did things to her she didn't want to do after meeting with her family over Thanksgiving, and she said he was very angry. Balwani took credit for moulding her and that the company's successes were his. In another meeting, Balwani texted Holmes, "You are speaking with everyone in your giddy voice. Excessive use of awesome." Balwani would verbally berate her. She needed to be more like a man to be in business. She started to note these incidents on her iPhone in the wake of the sexual abuse incident. And after one alleged incident of rape, Holmes wrote, "Don't enjoy literally anything about it. Hurts so much. I thought that he was the best business person I knew. I didn't question him in the way that I otherwise would have," she said. "I was a monkey trying to fly a spaceship." In 2016, after the scathing CMS inspection, Holmes said that she was shocked to learn of the failures at the company. "It made me rethink Balwani's abilities as a business leader," she said. About the breakup, she said that she broke up with him and moved out in around May 2016 when he was in Thailand. She said that she was not forced to make statements to investors or Walgreens, but "He impacted everything about who I was, and I don't fully understand that," she said. Now, none of this was actually addressed when she gave testimony to the SEC in 2017, and in that testimony she said, "I'm the CEO, I'm the ultimate decision maker for the company." And when Balwani had been made president and wanted to run operations, she'd said, "And I let him do that. At the end of this exchange there was a change of tack. Kevin Downey for the defence asked Holmes, "Did you ever sell a share of your stock in Theranos?" "I did not," she replied. "Why?" she was asked. "I didn't want to. I believed in the company and wanted to put everything I had into it." Now clearly the defence are demonstrating that Holmes had faith in the company, else, if it were a pack of cards, then she surely would have taken some money by this point. And that's it. Just after the defence counsel finished, Holmes broke down and cried on the stand. Defence attorney Catherine Treft actually gave her a hug just after things had concluded for the day. I believe that the defence have concluded their examination of Holmes. We'll wrap this presentation up here and present the prosecution as a part 2 of week 14. And as usual, we'll boil down the testimony to the bare essentials. So this is essentially the whole of Holmes' defence in her own words. Oh, please don't forget to like this video if you did, and subscribe and then hit the notification button so that you don't miss out on future trial updates and other videos when they're published. Holmes' defence testimony in a nutshell. The machines. We saw positive feedback from Walgreens. The military. We heard about an actual contract for work in Afghanistan. The devices were never used on Medivacs. She never said that, and this contradicts at least 3 investors who said that she did. Demonstrations. She was involved in hundreds, and they were tailored to the audience. On the null protocol setup, yes, we did that, but it wasn't intended to mislead anyone. And there was no order given to anyone to change any of the test results. The clinical lab, it did get CMS certification in 2011, and there were no deficiencies noted, and she'd given no one instructions to hide the lab from any of the CMS auditors. Rosendorf, she was very excited when he came on board. He was put in charge of the ops, and she got feedback from him saying that the lab was performing extremely well, and she was very taken aback by his complaints with the lab when she eventually got them. Erica Chung, she never had any communications with him. Tyler Schultz, she'd asked Dr. Young to address Tyler's concerns, and she'd become satisfied with Young's findings even after going back a second time. The Balwani relationship. They met when she was 18 and he was 38. She'd been raped while in Stanford, and that was part of the reason for her to leave in her sophomore year and set up Theranos. Balwani told me I didn't know what I was doing. I should kill the old Elizabeth. He told me that I looked like a little girl and used adjectives like kiddie. He forced me to have sex. He was angry when I met my family. Theranos' successes were Balwani's. He verbally berated me. He said I was a monkey trying to fly a spaceship. She eventually questioned Balwani's competence after the damning CMS report, and some of her testimony appears to contradict earlier testimony she gave to the SEC. Finally, stock sales. No, she never sold them. And why not? Because she had faith in the company. Well, that's it for this testimony. We will hear what the prosecution does in their cross-examination from tomorrow, and that's it.